When you meet someone you're genuinely excited about, it's natural to want to give, to show up, to invest. We think, if I just show him how amazing I can be, how thoughtful, how giving, I'll stand out. I'll be unforgettable. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Over-investing too soon doesn't increase your value, it diminishes it. Now, this isn't about playing games. It's not about being cold or pretending not to care. It's about understanding how real connection works. Because the speed at which you give should always match the pace at which trust is being built. And trust isn't built in a day. It's earned over time through consistency, honesty, and shared experience. Let's talk about what over-investing actually looks like. It's rearranging your schedule at the drop of a hat to see him. It's being available whenever he calls. It's planning dates, checking in all the time, going out of your way to help with things he hasn't even asked for. It's not bad to be thoughtful, but when that thoughtfulness starts pouring out before someone has really shown you who they are, it's not generosity, it's insecurity wearing a mask. When you invest too much, too quickly, you don't leave space for the other person to show up. And here's the paradox. We think by doing more, we're becoming more attractive, but often it just signals that we've already made our decision about them before they've even earned it, that we're already in, regardless of how they show up. And that's not confidence, that's a fear of losing someone who hasn't truly shown up for us yet. Imagine meeting someone new and after 1 or 2 dates, they're showering you with gifts, constant texts, planning getaways. At first, it might feel flattering, but pretty soon you'd start to wonder, do they really like me, or are they just desperate to be with someone? That same doubt is what starts to creep into the mind of someone who sees you doing too much, too fast. What truly draws people in is the feeling that you are choosing them, but that you don't need them. That your life is already full, already rich. You're not trying to fill a void. You're letting them add to your life, not become your entire source of happiness. That's value. That's where attraction becomes something magnetic. There's something very attractive about someone who's generous, but still has boundaries, who gives, but doesn't give everything away all at once. Because that person knows their energy is sacred. They're not trying to buy someone's affection with effort. They're offering themselves in a way that says, if this continues to be mutual, I'll keep showing up, but I won't keep pouring into someone who isn't pouring back. You need to remember that chemistry doesn't equal commitment. Just because the connection feels strong doesn't mean the other person is on the same page. Sometimes we're not even investing in them, we're investing in our idea of who we want them to be. That's a dangerous trap, because when you're fixated on potential, you ignore reality, and reality is the only place love can grow. Think about the people in your life who you deeply respect. Chances are you admire them not just because they're kind or giving, but because they have standards. They know when to lean in and when to step back. They're discerning. They're not transactional, but they are intentional. That's what earns respect. That's what commands attention. Not loud gestures, but quiet self-respect. When you find yourself constantly giving, constantly initiating, constantly chasing, ask yourself, what am I trying to prove? Because often over-investing isn't about connection, it's about control. It's about trying to create certainty where there isn't any yet. And that's not love. That's fear. You're afraid if you don't give enough, if you don't make yourself indispensable, they'll walk away. But here's the thing. If someone leaves because you weren't doing the absolute most, they were never really with you in the first place. High-value behavior isn't about doing less, it's about doing what's aligned. It's giving from a place of confidence, not anxiety. When a man sees that you're measured in your effort, that you show up, but not more than he does, it tells him that you value yourself, that you know you're a prize. and you're not afraid to walk away from anything that doesn't reflect that. Don't be afraid to let someone miss you a little. Let them wonder what you're up to. Let them be the one to reach out sometimes. Let there be space, because in that space, real interest reveals itself. And the person who's serious about you, they'll step into that space without needing to be pulled or pushed. You don't need to buy love with effort. You don't need to overperform to be chosen. The right person will recognize your value, not because you shouted it with grand gestures, but because you quietly showed them that your time, your energy, your heart, those things are earned. Value doesn't need to prove itself. It just needs to be seen. You know, one of the most subtle but powerful things that can absolutely destroy your value in front of a man is needing constant reassurance. And I get it. We all want to feel wanted. We all want to know we're appreciated, that someone still likes us, that we're still exciting to them. But here's the problem. When that need becomes chronic, when it becomes a pattern, it stops being cute or endearing. It starts becoming exhausting. And worse, it becomes unattractive. See, in the beginning of a connection, everyone is a little unsure. Do they like me? Are they still interested? That's normal. But what sets apart someone who's truly high value is how they handle that uncertainty. Because confidence is sexy. Insecurity isn't. When you're constantly seeking validation, whether through questions, behaviors, or subtle emotional tests, you're essentially outsourcing your sense of self-worth. And a man can feel that. He can feel that emotional burden starting to pile up. There's a big difference between wanting someone and needing them to fill an emotional void. One creates desire, the other creates pressure. And when you're always fishing for reassurance, what you're really saying is, I don't fully believe in my value unless you remind me of it often. That's not partnership, that's emotional dependency. And over time, that kind of dynamic will suffocate any attraction. Think about this. How do you feel around someone who's always asking if you still like them, if you're mad at them, if they're doing okay? At first, you might try to comfort them, you might reassure them, but eventually it starts to feel like you're doing emotional labor that isn't yours. And that labor takes away from the fun, the spark, the lightness that relationships need in order to grow. When you're grounded in your own value, you don't need to be told every day that someone wants you. You can feel it in their actions. And more importantly, you're okay if someone doesn't. That's what makes you magnetic. That's what makes you a woman who's not just desirable, but unforgettable, because it shows you trust yourself. You trust your instincts. You trust that you bring something real to the table, and if someone doesn't see it, that's their loss. And here's the kicker. Men are naturally drawn to women who already feel good about themselves. That doesn't mean you have to be perfect. It doesn't mean you don't have vulnerable moments, but it does mean you're not basing your identity on whether or not someone else chooses you. You've already chosen yourself. That's the energy shift that changes everything. The moment you stop asking, does he like me? And start asking, do I even like him? Is he showing up for me? That's the moment you flip the script. Because now you're not performing, you're evaluating. You're not waiting for approval. You're observing behavior. And that's when the dynamic changes. That's when he starts realizing he needs to earn you, not the other way around. There's also something deeply unattractive about emotional unpredictability. When your confidence rises and falls based on whether he texted back fast enough or gave you enough compliments that day, it creates instability. It makes it feel like the connection is on shaky ground. But when you show up with steadiness, when your mood, your vibe, your energy isn't dictated by what he did or didn't do, you become the grounded one in the room. You become the safe space. And that's powerful. You don't have to fake anything either. This isn't about pretending to be cool when you're dying for a message. It's about genuinely shifting your mindset to believe that your worth doesn't come from external validation. That someone's affection is nice, but not necessary for you to feel okay. You build that through your own life, through your friendships, through your purpose, through the way you talk to yourself. Every time you show yourself love instead of outsourcing it to someone else, you reinforce that foundation. If you find yourself slipping into those old patterns of needing to be reassured all the time, pause. Ask yourself, what's really going on underneath? Are you anxious because of his actions or because of your own fears? Is he truly being distant, or are you reacting to a story in your head? The more you can separate your emotional state from his behavior, the more power you take back. Look, everyone wants to feel loved. Everyone wants to feel chosen. But needing to constantly hear it, prove it, confirm it, it doesn't bring you closer to love. It pushes it away. The irony is that the more secure you are in yourself, the more freely others offer you the reassurance you don't even need, because they feel safe doing it. Because it doesn't feel like a demand. It feels like a gift. So don't fall into the trap of chasing that feeling. Create it inside every day. Then let your relationships be a reflection of that, not the source. You know, one of the biggest things that quietly destroys your value in front of a man isn't the obvious stuff. It's the things you don't do. It's what you tolerate, what you excuse, what you let slide because you're trying to be chill or you're afraid of rocking the boat. But let me tell you something real. The moment you start ignoring red flags, you don't look like the cool, low minimal woman who's just going with the flow. You start looking like someone who doesn't value herself enough to walk away when something's off. We've all been there. You meet someone, the chemistry's great, and you want it to work, so you overlook things. He cancels plans last minute, maybe once, maybe twice. You tell yourself, he's probably busy, or at least he still made time to text me. But deep down, there's that little voice, that whisper that says, this isn't how someone treats something they value. The problem is, when you ignore the first red flag, you set the standard. You teach him what he can get away with. And people, especially in early dating, are always watching to see what your standards are. You think you're just being understanding, but what he's learning is, I can disrespect her time and she'll stay. And once that precedent is set, it's incredibly hard to reverse. A man might be drawn to your beauty, your energy, your confidence, but what makes him stay, what makes him see you as someone he doesn't want to lose, is your unwillingness to betray yourself just to keep him interested. That's what commands respect. When you start brushing things off that shouldn't be brushed off, like flaky communication, inconsistent behavior, or even subtle put-downs, you're not just being easygoing. You're communicating something, whether you realize it or not. You're saying, I'd rather stay and hope this changes than walk away from something that doesn't serve me. And the second that becomes the message, the attraction dynamic changes, because real, healthy attraction comes from admiration. And admiration doesn't grow where there's no backbone. Let's get real here. Red flags aren't just warnings about him. They're tests for you. They're moments that ask, are you willing to lose yourself to hold on to this? And every time you choose to explain away behavior that you'd never advise your best friend to accept, you chip away at your own sense of value. Now, I'm not saying one mistake means he's a bad guy, we're all human and nobody's perfect, but there's a difference between someone who slips up and someone who shows you, through repeated actions, that they don't take you seriously, that they don't prioritize you, that they're inconsistent, disrespectful, or emotionally immature. And the sooner you address those things, the better, because if you don't, they start to shape the entire foundation of the relationship. You don't build something meaningful by closing your eyes and hoping it turns into what you want. You build it by having the courage to say, hey, this doesn't feel right, even when you're afraid of losing the person. That's real strength. That's real self-worth. And that's how you keep your value intact. It's easy to confuse silence with strength, to think if I just stay quiet, If I don't make it a big deal, he'll see how great I am and he'll change. But relationships don't work like that. People change when they realize they're dealing with someone who won't accept less than what they deserve, not someone who's silently waiting for them to become better. The woman who holds her value, even when her emotions are involved, even when she's invested, is the woman who becomes unforgettable. Not because she was perfect, not because she never got hurt, but because she never abandoned herself in the process of trying to make something work. So the next time your gut tells you something's off, listen. Don't gaslight yourself. Don't minimize it. You can be kind and still have boundaries. You can be compassionate without being a doormat. And you can absolutely love someone and still walk away if they're not showing up the way you need them to. Because if a man doesn't meet you at the level you bring, the most powerful thing you can do isn't to prove your worth louder. It's to quietly leave. That's how you protect your value. You were whole before he came along. Don't lose that. One of the most heartbreaking things I see is someone slowly dissolving who they are the moment they feel they've found the one. It starts off subtle. You skip a gym session because he made last-minute dinner plans. You stop replying to your friend's text as quickly because now most of your attention is on him. That weekend hobby that lit you up, suddenly it's not a priority anymore because your free time is spent at his place. And before you know it, you've traded in your identity for proximity to someone else. At first, he might love the attention, the feeling of being wanted, prioritized, even pursued. It strokes the ego. But over time, something strange happens. That same man who once loved being the center of your universe starts pulling away. Why? Because the person he originally fell for, the one who had a vibrant life, strong opinions, passions, friends, goals, that person begins to fade. He's no longer dating the whole you. He's dating a version of you shaped around him. Now, don't get me wrong, being adaptable and generous in a relationship is beautiful. Compromise is part of love. But when compromise turns into self-erasure, you don't just lose your value in his eyes, you start to lose yourself. And nothing is more painful than waking up one day and not recognizing who you've become, only to realize you're in a relationship with someone who never asked you to shrink in the first place. Men, just like women, are drawn to passion. They're drawn to people who bring something unique to the table, someone who is lit up by their own life. When you let go of the things that make you you, you're dimming that light. You're sending the message subtly but consistently that you believe being with him is more important than being yourself. And that message doesn't inspire love or loyalty. It creates imbalance and over time, resentment. I've coached people through breakups where they say, I gave everything to him. I gave up my time. I moved cities. I stopped doing things I loved. And the part that crushes them the most, it still wasn't enough. Thinking that shrinking yourself into a mold of what you think he wants will make him stay. But what keeps someone? It's not the convenience of you always being there. It's the intrigue of your independence, the way you light up when you talk about your dreams, the fact that you don't just orbit his world, you've got your own universe. It's about energy. When you're deeply connected to your own passions, when you've got a life that excites you, you radiate something magnetic. And when a man sees that, he doesn't feel smothered. He feels inspired. He respects it. He knows he's dating someone who's chosen him, not because she needs to be completed, but because she's already full and is choosing to share that with him. So don't abandon your life for love. The right person doesn't want to replace your world. They want to be a part of it. Your friends, your goals, your routines, your voice. These aren't optional extras. They're essentials. And the moment you start compromising on them too much, you start teaching him that he can be the sun and you'll just revolve around him. But you're not a satellite. You're a star in your own right. And when someone truly values you, they want to see you shine. The irony is that the more you maintain your sense of self, the more attractive you become. You're not just a romantic partner, you're a whole experience. You bring laughter from your girls' nights, stories from your work wins, depth from the books you read, excitement from your next big adventure. You're not waiting around for him to give you meaning, you already have it. And here's the thing, it's not about playing hard to get. This isn't about pretending to be busy or feigning disinterest. It's about genuinely living a life you love. When you operate from that space, you won't have to overthink how to attract or keep someone. Your energy will speak for itself. It will say, I'm not here to be completed. I'm here to be experienced. So if you've found yourself slowly molding into someone else's world, take a pause. Reconnect with your own. Reignite the parts of you that maybe went quiet. Because the highest value you offer in any relationship is being unapologetically yourself. We all want to come across as confident, self-sufficient, and in control. And sometimes in that pursuit, we swing too far in the opposite direction. We build walls, we act unbothered, we try to show that we don't need anyone. But what we don't realize is, in trying to protect ourselves, we also make it impossible for someone to truly connect with us. Emotional unavailability isn't just about being cold or distant. Sometimes it shows up as pretending things don't matter when they do, laughing off something that hurt, not following up on something that was said. It's replying with, I'm fine, when you're not, or saying whatever when something actually matters a lot to you. These moments might feel like strength in the moment, but what they're actually doing is reinforcing a wall between you and the person you're with. And walls don't build relationships, they block them. There's this fear we have that if we show too much, we'll scare someone off, that being open or vulnerable or honest will somehow make us look weak or needy. But the truth is, being emotionally available doesn't mean being overly emotional. It doesn't mean dumping your every thought and feeling onto someone. It just means allowing someone to see you, to actually see what's going on inside, and to have the courage to say, this is how I feel, and I'm okay with you knowing it. Think about the people you connect with the most in life. They're not the ones who pretend everything's perfect all the time. They're the ones who are real with you, who open up, who let you in. That kind of emotional honesty creates intimacy. It builds trust. It makes you memorable, not just because of your smile or your appearance, but because of how someone feels when they're around you. People don't fall in love with a facade. They fall in love with the moments when they feel closest to who you really are. Now, this doesn't mean you should wear your heart on your sleeve for anyone who walks into your life. Not everyone earns the right to know the deeper parts of you, but if you're constantly holding back, even when someone is showing up, even when they're trying to connect, then what you're doing is withholding one of the most powerful tools you have in a relationship, your truth. Sometimes emotional unavailability comes from past hurt. Maybe you've been vulnerable before and it wasn't received well. Maybe someone used your openness against you. Maybe it made you feel small. And so now, without even realizing it, you've become guarded. You've created a version of yourself that feels safer, less affected. But let me ask you this, has that version brought you closer to the kind of relationship you want? Has it created deeper connection or just kept people at a distance? Because here's the real issue. If someone can't see your heart, they don't get the chance to love the real you. They only get to love the version you think is safe to show. And you end up asking yourself why it feels so empty, why the connection never quite goes deep enough, why you feel misunderstood or unseen, even when someone's right next to you. Men, real men, the kind who are emotionally intelligent, and looking for something meaningful, are not scared off by your vulnerability. They're drawn to it. They find it refreshing. It helps them let their own guard down. When you say, hey, that actually hurt, or I was excited about this and a little nervous, it creates a space where he feels like, wow, I can be honest here too. That's where the real connection happens. But when someone keeps getting a version of you that's always fine, always in control, always distant, they don't get the full picture. They don't know where they stand. They start to feel unsure about how to show up for you, and eventually they might stop trying. Not because they don't care, but because they can't read the signals, because they feel like no matter what they do, they can't get close. It's ironic, isn't it? We try to protect ourselves from getting hurt, but sometimes that very protection becomes the reason something never grows. A relationship doesn't deepen through perfect moments. It deepens through honest ones. The late night conversations, the moments where you say, that actually scared me, or I don't know what to do right now. That's when someone gets to see your humanity. And that's when real love starts to take shape. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to always be calm and collected. You're allowed to feel. You're allowed to need. You're allowed to say, this is me and I'm figuring it out as I go. And when the right person sees that, they'll lean in. They'll want to understand you. They'll respect you more, not less. Because emotional availability is strength. It's maturity. It's the foundation of a lasting connection. So if you've been keeping people at arm's length, ask yourself, what am I afraid will happen if I let someone see the real me?